Chocolate Mousse by Maggie Kneen. Moose loved chocolate, so one sunny day he set out for the village bakery to buy himself a chocolate cake. In the bakery window, along with some delicious cakes, there was a job advertisement which read, "Wanted, one mouse to work 2 hours a day." "Wanted, one moose," he read. "I could have as many chocolate cakes as I like if I worked here." So he thinks it says moose, but it says mouse. Squish, squiggle, squeak. Moose squeezed himself through the door. "I'd like to take that job," he said. Mrs. Mouse was quite surprised. Her babies seemed surprised too. They stopped crying for a moment to watch Moose. He was the biggest thing they had ever seen. "Dear me," exclaimed Mrs. Mouse. "You're not a mouse, you're a moose. I don't think I have a uniform in your size, just at the moment." Moose looked so sad that Mrs. Mouse went and searched for a uniform big enough to fit him. The babies started crying again. "Sorry for the noise," she said. "I wish my babies would fall asleep." Moose thought she sounded tired. Moose was very pleased with his uniform. He loved his new job. Slurp, gulp, burp. When Mrs. Mouse wasn't looking, Moose would eat spoonfuls of cake mix or a few chunks of chocolate. Sometimes the babies would stop crying and watch him. They were so cute. Moose offered the babies some chocolate. "The babies need some lunch before they have any chocolate," said Mrs. Mouse. "Let's make some sandwiches." But the sandwiches Moose made were far too big for the mice. Mice have only very small teeth, you know. "They need mouse-sized sandwiches," said Mrs. Mouse patiently as she tried to comfort the hungry babies. So there's the mice and the giant sandwiches. "Let's try making some pancakes instead," said Mrs. Mouse, giving Moose some milk and flour and 3 lovely fresh eggs. Splish, splash, crack! Moose got everything safely into the bowl, including some chocolate when Mrs. Mouse wasn't looking. Mrs. Mouse put her hands over her eyes as Moose tried to work the electric mixer. The babies watched in silence, spellbound. So look what he's doing with the mixer. He's making a huge mess. Slip, slop, splat. Moose flipped his first pancake so high that it hit the ceiling with a slap and hung there dripping with batter. There's his first pancake up on the ceiling. The pancake then unfastened itself from the ceiling. Plop! The baby mice started to giggle. Moose peeled the pancake off Mrs. Mouse as quickly as he could and threw it in the garbage. But he couldn't carry all of it. The babies happily picked up some of the pancake bits and lumps of chocolate and munched away. So Mrs. Mouse is underneath that pancake. Wham! Whee! Slam! On his way back, Moose slipped and slid across the floor on his bottom, landing with a crash against the sideboard where all the best china was kept. So now the china is flying all over the place because his bum hit the sideboard, which is a little table on the side of the table. When the noise of the smashing cups and plates quieted, Moose stood up. He was covered in dust and ribbons of pancake. All over the kitchen were broken cups, bits of pancake, crusts, crumbs, and eggshells. Moose picked up a broom and tried to tidy up the mess. Skitter, scatter, clatter. Moose had almost finished sweeping when he tripped and knocked a tray of chocolate chip cookies off the shelf with his broom. The babies couldn't believe their luck. So now the babies are eating chocolate chip cookies. Poor Moose. He had tried so hard, but everything just seemed to go wrong. "Maybe I'm not the best moose for this job," he said. "To be honest, I only applied because I love chocolate." A tear ran down his cheek. "Oh my, a chocolate mousse. That's always special," said Mrs. Mouse. And then she had an idea. "I think I can find a place for you here." Cuddle, nuzzle, snuggle. Mrs. Mouse put the babies in Moose's arms, where they fell fast asleep. They loved Moose. "Thank you, Moose. You have helped me so much," she said, looking at her quiet, contented babies. Every day after that, Mrs. Mouse served the customers and Chocolate Moose took care of the babies. And every now and then, Mrs. Mouse would bring Moose a treat from the bakery. Sometimes something very chocolatey. So there he has some chocolate desserts right there with the mice. All right, so our craft to go with this is going to be some moose antlers. So I'm starting with a lighter brown construction paper, and I've just cut it into strips. And the reason I've done that is because you need to measure how large your head is. If you just use one strip, it's probably not going to be large enough to go around somebody's head. So you can use glue or tape or a stapler, whatever you have at your house, and you put two sections together so that you have a longer piece. So now I have a long piece, and what I need to do is measure around a head. So if you have a child or somebody that you're working with, measure around their head to see what size you need their headband to be. So that's about right for me. So it was about there. So I'm going to cut off my excess piece. And I'm going to staple it together. My stapler is out of staples. So I'll tape that together so that I have my headband. So there's the first part of the craft. And then the next part of the craft is to make your antlers. And you don't need to make this complicated. I know that people think it will be hard, but it's not. Basically, it's like 3 fingers. So each piece of the antler has 3 fingers on the side, and then it's just rounded around the other side. So if you're not sure, you can just hold up 3 fingers and do like a wide looping trace around your antlers. And then you cut those out. And when you cut them out, you're going to get shapes like this. So I'm going to cut out my other one that matches my antler that I have. And so if you have a darker brown construction paper, you can use that. If you don't have a darker brown construction paper, you can always color your antlers, whatever color you need them. If you have a thicker scrapbooking paper, that might work better for your antlers so that they stand up nice and tall. So if you have a stapler, you attach your moose antlers. So moose antlers kind of poke out to the sides, and they're really kind of awkward and funny. So that's how they're going to sit. So I'm going to start by taping my moose antler on. You need to have it angled up enough so that you'll be able to see it from the back. So that one's a little bit low, so we need to put it up a little higher. And then fasten it with your tape or your glue or your stapler, whatever you have. So my preference would be the stapler. I think it gives you like a nice strong hold on your antler. And then I'm going to do the other one. So this one has the fingers facing down, so I want this one to have the fingers facing down as well. So there's my other side. So when you see moose in the wild, they just have big giant antlers, the bull moose does. And so when you put on your headband, It's going to help to push your antlers up out to the side. So that's how you wear your moose antlers.